Hello, I'm John Frank, CEO of Third Road Management, and welcome to Beyond the Loop, a podcast from the Executives Club of Chicago, where we explore the ideas and issues shaping Chicago and the world beyond it. Today, I'm joined by Joe Fontana, founder of Fry the Coop, one of Chicagoland's fastest growing restaurant brands. We're going to talk Joe's story, the restaurant's growth, and the fractional services that his team utilizes for growth and sustainability. Joe, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's good to see you again, buddy.
Good to see you.
Very good. Yeah. So I'm John Frank, founder and CEO of Third Road Management, fellow entrepreneur like yourself. But I guess in your own words, why don't you give a brief intro of who you are?
I am Joe Fontana, founder of Fry the Coop. We have 10 restaurants in the Chicagoland area, all spread out. We are currently building our 11th restaurant with a whole headquarters, commissary, office attached to that 11th location with goals of opening up 75 stores all around the Chicagoland area.
Wonderful. And obviously you and I have known one another professionally now for a couple of years, and we're going to get into that whole thing. But I thought it would be good contextually for, you and I both to probably give a little bit of background about, how you got here and how I got to where I am, and then
Absolutely.
the journey of us working together is, I think, what we're here to discuss. So tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey. Where did it start? Where did the grand vision come from?
I have a little bit of a classic story now, or similar story to a lot of people who, worked in a corporate setting. I grew up in hospitality, bartending, valeting, and when I got into this corporate setting, I just couldn't stand working on something in an office behind a computer that I wasn't passionate about, that I didn't have just love for, putting my heart and soul into something. So after a long journey, I kind of realized and figured out I love food. I became obsessed with fried chicken sandwiches. I realized there wasn't really a place where you could get gourmet, handmade fried chicken sandwiches. And so I worked pretty hard for 5 years, reading books, meeting up with mentors, doing a little culinary school, a pop-up I did, going around Southern California, selling food, and eventually worked to get open our first location in 2017 in Oak Lawn, Illinois. Kicked the doors open, and after about 3 months of not having any, customers, no sign, no money, eventually hired a publicist. We got on TV. After that, just people started flooding the place. Before I knew it, we were selling out left and right. I mean, could not make enough chicken, lines down the street, and just parlayed all that success and opened up our second location, then our third, fourth, fifth, and fast forward to today, we got 10 locations, over 200 employees. We have a whole office. We have a commissary. So altogether right now, we have 14 businesses that we are running. Pretty gnarly. Yeah.
And what was that, 10 locations now, but just sequencing wise, if you started in, I think you said 2017.
Yeah.
How long did it take from go to 1 to 2 and then say 2 to 4 and 4 to 10?
So luckily the second location we opened up about a year later. So it was about 12 to 14 months, I think. In 2018, we opened up. And then we started working on number 3 almost right away. And surprisingly, a food hall came into place. So location 4 kind of popped up out of nowhere. And then by 2020, we opened up location 5, 2021, 6. So it's almost been about 1 or 2 a year since 2017.
Got it.
So, but it's pretty gnarly. I mean, you think about opening up 11 restaurants now in 9 years, 8.5 years. That's a lot of restaurants to open up.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Especially going from not knowing how to open up a restaurant to doing that.
Yeah. And all somewhat operating independently, but obviously with some back end synergies.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like at the beginning you were kind of asking a question like something was missing, right? You identified this niche in the marketplace that was something that you wanted that didn't exist, right? And it's sort of the starting point of my company, Third Road Management. This is going back into 2012, 2013. I had been, on Wall Street for a large stretch of my career in leverage finance, doing a bunch of different things that are sort of like all in and around finance, and got out of that. And as I did, just had people reaching out to me, friends and family, looking for help. You know what I mean? And a lot of times they were just kind of scratching their heads on what to do with their numbers, making strategic decisions, kind of thing. And so I started helping people on the side originally, around that 2013 mark, and I got one going. It was a commercial printing business on the west side of Chicago that just went from, sort of struggling financially to thriving financially with just what I thought were some basic blocking and tackling type of exercises, which were really asking the questions that needed to be asked and setting the right parameters in place. And then that parlayed into a second one with a temporary fence rental company, also here in the Chicagoland area. And I, again, asking the question, like, what's missing? It dawned on me that like I had never heard of a business like this. And that at the time I likened it to sort of like a Bain or McKinsey for small to mid-sized businesses. But I've, refined that language, refined that vision a little bit. And the aha moment was just realizing that, a lot of small to mid-sized organizations are missing like sort of the strategic, financial, and operational leadership. A lot of them they know what their numbers are. They don't necessarily know what their numbers mean. And so we are, Third Road Management is among what I call the pioneers of what's now the fractional CFO industry. We do obviously our fractional CFO services, and then complementing our fractional CFO services is our accounting services group. And the accounting services group, the best way I describe it is, the accounting services takes care of everything all the way through the books being complete. You know what I mean? So if you're a organization that values beautiful financial statements, you want to do some accrual-based accounting, you've got a review from an accounting firm or potentially an audit, you want great insights into your business, and you can't just, depend upon cash basis accounting. We're a great fit. But we also don't do taxes and audits, so we don't compete with those CPA firms as well. And we found it's a really interesting niche because sometimes people hire us for one service, sometimes people hire us for both. It just kind of depends.
And I love that you went kind of to this, struggling in your personal career to then like figuring out how like helping people, and then built this business around really just helping small businesses. Yeah. One of the big things that I've learned is the three pillars that you need in a great business is great product, great service, and great financials. But if you could have a great product and you can have great services, but if you don't have good financials, you are dead in the water. And it's only just a matter of time before it's over.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's been an amazing, journey for us. And like just comparatively speaking, I think we legally organized in 2015, started going out publicly with this, Third Road Management, the website, everything in 2016. So our starting points are actually, sort of on a similar timeline, if you will. But yeah, I mean, right now we've got about 50 employees, clients in about 17 states, but predominantly boots on the ground here in the Chicagoland area.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Just to compliment you a little bit, only 8% of small businesses will ever make it to 10 years or more. Yeah. So congrats to you on that, because that's huge.
Yeah.
We're about a year and a half away from that 10-year mark. So I think we'll make it.
I'll be celebrating with you.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. That's right. Okay, so our professional worlds intersected a few years ago where we started working together. People ask me all the time, like, hey, when is it a good time for people to call like Third Road Management? I always say, okay, on the CFO side of our business, it's where they have a recognition that, hey, I need some heavier muscle than what I have now. I've got a good accountant, but I need insights. I need people to see around the corners. I need good projections. I need good pricing analysis, like all those kind of things. And I recognize I have the need for those things, but I really don't feel like I need somebody here 5 days a week, right?
Sure.
That one is a little bit for us, a little bit more cut and dry in terms of like when the time to call is.
Mm-hmm.
On the accounting services side, I think there's really four different buckets. Like when the phone rings kind of thing, and I take time to speak with a potential client or whatever, there's four themes that come up, right? The first one is, hey, I'm a smaller business, right? Maybe you're in the $5 to $20 million range. I realize I can't do what got me to, where I'm at right now, but like I don't have the money to pay for a full-time controller and a full-time accountant and a full-time
Sure.
bookkeeper, right? And so like what our service does is we give you like a little bit of everything, right? So you get controllership, right? But the controller doesn't need to be doing the AR and AP, for example. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so we fit well in that bucket where you're getting, the best of all worlds, if you will. Um, the second piece is when we do staff augmentation. And the staff augmentation comes up in a couple of different ways. Number one is there's a recognition that we need more, but we don't need a full-time person yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece to that, which is an interesting one that I didn't see coming, is people that look at using us as a little bit of a hedge within their accounting team because they're like, hey, I want to have some internal accounting infrastructure, control, whatever, but I also recognize that I have a vulnerability there in terms of turnover and, what might happen. So that's become something that we've seen quite a bit. The third layer is complete outsourcing. Again, I didn't quite see this coming, but like we've had a number of different clients that have said, the number of accountants is shrinking in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We are having a increasingly hard time finding people. And when we find people, we're having a hard time training them. And I want to go out and make this product or service or whatever. And I don't want to think about my accounting department.
Sure.
Like you guys take it over and the whole thing. Um,
And you have a situation where you actually hired some people from their internal accounting team that are now your full-time employees.
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
sure.
I
I
think
mean,
that's pretty
it's
cool.
all about, yeah, like how do you craft a solution that works for everybody? You know what I mean? How do we solve the problem
Mm-hmm.
ultimately? And then the fourth that doesn't come up that often that we see is, but we do get phone calls. In fact, this week I had a phone call in that way, but, where they're looking for mentorship, they're saying, hey, I've got a accountant that I like, but they're a little bit green. I don't think they know everything that they need to know. Can you guys come in and you guys will have a controller that can act as a little bit of a mentor to that accountant? Or sometimes it's on the CFO side, hey, I've got a really good controller, but they're not quite ready for the CFO work.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love for our controller to work with you for the next couple of years and maybe they'll be ready then. But those are some of the situations in which, people contact us. With you specifically, you have a dedicated, awesome internal accounting team
Mm-hmm.
and finance team. And, what was it that fit at that time to start working with us? And then what are the value propositions that you've experienced thus far?
So, and I think there's a lot of great things that you just said about how you help small businesses because there's a point where like you don't have enough, you know, cash flow to hire that CFO and, create such a deep team. And then, you kind of realize like what point do you jump off the cliff and have to hire, a CFO? Is it a revenue point? Is it a transactions, how many bank accounts? So for us, I read a book called Profit First, and Profit First was kind of this envelope system of where, the envelope system was back in the day when your grandma would take cash and, she'd put it in, this envelope for rent, when you get paid, and then this envelope for the electric bill, and this for the gas bill, and this for groceries. So what I did is when we opened up our first business, I had, I think, 7 or 8 bank accounts. And so every time we would get cash coming into the business, which was daily, I would move them around the bank accounts. This one's for rent. This one's for our food costs. This one's for taxes. And I just, and this one's for profit. And so, fast forward till we got to, 10 restaurants, 14 businesses. we ended up with like 72 bank accounts. So that creates so many intercompany transactions that I think it caused a huge like kind of mess for the accounting team to adapt once they started wrapping their head around what I was doing. But for me, not knowing how to create a cash flow statement and have a balance sheet that I'm like understanding fully, that was just my way of understanding how much cash we had on hand, because I knew all these little envelopes, how much money they had in them. And it worked out great because we always had cash. Something broke, I got cash. I've been saving for it, And then another part of it was we had hired a bookkeeper, local bookkeeper who I absolutely loved. I kind of found out that she was a bank teller who decided to become a bookkeeper, kind of self-taught for about a year, had one small client, and then jumped on with us almost full time. So she was very green. And I would say a lot of small businesses probably have the same thing. They hire people on an accounting team and they are green in nature because, you can't really afford that really expensive seniored controller or bookkeeper. So that kind of happened with us, and our bookkeeper was great, but I think she was learning along the way, and then she made a lot of mistakes, and she figured out how to like manipulate our accounting software to make it work. But I bet you there was a lot of mistakes that were happening.
Yeah.
And so then when we hired our financial director, she had to kind of come in from a high level and was like, whoa, like there are so many twists and turns and, like a ball of yarn that's all messed up. And so she started dissecting it and kind of realized like, oh shoot, like we created and it was my fault. We created this incorrect system,
Yeah.
definitely not GAAP accounting and definitely not on an accrual basis. It was a little bit of a mess. So I think once we kind of realized like, hey, we have more questions than we have answers to. And our financial director, she worked at a very high level auditing books for banks. She worked for a consulting company. So she knew it from a very high level, but she was never in the weeds. It's all of a sudden now she's working for a small business. She's got a shovel in her hand.
Oh,
she's
yeah.
digging, So I think, you guys had a personal relationship. Our financial director, you guys live in the same neighborhood. Your kids go to school together.
Hey, we worked together.
And you work together.
Yeah, we were youngins, Arthur Anderson.
Yeah, you
back
came
in
up
the day.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, she came to me and was like, hey, I have a friend who, lives in our town who has this consulting accounting firm, and I think they can really help us. And so that's where the conversation started. But I realized that, we did need help. And there was a lot of questions that our bookkeeper didn't know the answer to. You start to Google things, and it always felt like we were reinventing the wheel.
Yep.
And so it was like, what are we doing? Like, we're not the first restaurant group to have multi-units and do intercompany transactions. So we just need some help, some guidance. We need a little more eyes on. And really, too, our bookkeeper, the best woman ever, so sweet. When she turned 50, she dropped at church. She just passed out from a panic attack. And so I get a call from her and she goes, Joe, I had to go to the hospital last week. And I said, why? And she goes, I don't think I can handle it anymore. I can't handle the stress. Like this is kind of getting above me,
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's fine. Like, let's just hire some people underneath you to help you. She goes, I don't want to manage people. So I said, okay. And she goes, I'm not saying, I'm quitting. She's just like, hey, in the next year or two, we need to figure out a solution to get me out of the company. Because, it was a lot of work for one person.
It was growing. Yeah. Yeah. A ton.
And it's a lot of stress,
Yeah.
There's deadlines quarterly, you need to know your numbers in real time. So that's when we started working with you guys and helping transition our bookkeeper out and really kind of fill in that role of like our augmented accounting team, you know?
Yeah. I mean, even with that augmentation, I mean, one of the things that we hear commonly from, either people that are thinking about working with us or more often when we've already started working with them is that like they didn't know what they didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
in a way. And within an industry, there's certainly power in that, but like even across industries, there's power in that. I mean, we work with, I think, close to 60 or 70 active client relationships now, and we've had more, beyond that over the 10 plus years that we've been in business. And there's just things that you learn along the way, like, hey, there's a better way to do this. You know what I mean?
100%.
What kind of tools can you utilize to augment your ERP system or your accounting system that you're using, right? Or hey, when is the critical time to think about, hey, we're growing beyond, say, QuickBooks or something like that, and we need to think about next steps and what does that look like, and who are good partners to implement, and what does that cost, and what's the benefit from it, and all those kind of things. And we've been around those enough to, bring helpful guidance and,
Yeah.
people in the room that can help answer some of those questions and help along the way as well.
It's a big deal. And it gets so complicated. And I think if you start to veer off the path, it gets expensive. And then another thing that really drives me crazy is when our team is doing manual work and they're spinning the wheels and it feels like they're on this like hamster wheel and they're running really hard and they're working really hard, but it's like you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I feel like Third Road has really came in to be like, hey, get off the hamster wheel. This is a better path forward. And I love too, if we have a question that maybe even someone on your team doesn't know the answer to, they have a ton of resources within your company to find out the answer. Like, hey, let me get back to you.
Yeah. Or like a rainy day. We talked about this before, but just like the rainy day scenario of, shoot, like something happened and we need surge staffing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you had an employee, again, this is kind of fits in with the staff augmentation, but let's say you had somebody take another job quickly in your accounting department. Well, by having the pre-existing relationship with us, you can give me a call, and obviously, we have to have the staffing to do it, but we normally do. But it's not uncommon for us to get that call of being like, hey, I need at least one more person for a stretch of time before I can backfill this.
Oh, sure. No, it's it's almost like an insurance policy, that you're filling
Right.
in that sense. Because yeah, you need, and the IRS requires you to have real-time financials. You get penalized, right, if you don't. And so there can be no downtime ever,
We'd like to take a moment to thank Shore Incorporated for being a proud sponsor of the Executives Exchange podcast. Shore is a gold standard trusted by podcasters, musicians, and broadcasters around the world. Whether you're recording at home or in a professional studio, Shore microphones deliver clear, reliable audio every time, meaning fewer distractions, better conversations, and a more polished experience for your listeners. Visit shore.com to explore their full range of products for home use and professional media needs. As you think about the future with Fry the Coop and, ambitious dreams or whatever, but I think all dreams need to be ambitious.
Absolutely.
Just to be clear.
Audacious goals.
Audacious goals. If you're 10, 11, properties now, where do you see it in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And then as you think about the obstacles along the way, what are the things that keep you up at night?
Yeah. And I think, I agree 100%. You need audacious goals. People need things to hope for. They need things to work towards. Celebrating a victory or a milestone is great, but then that, time goes and, that too shall pass. You could celebrate it. That's phenomenal. Those happy feelings, but they will go away. So then it's like when you get there, it's like you're climbing your mountain. What's the next thing?
Yep.
So I've set our audacious goals, opening up 75 locations all around the Chicagoland area. We happen to live in an amazing market. There's over 500 neighborhoods and suburbs in the Chicagoland area. You sprinkle in Milwaukee, Northwest Indiana, all the college towns. So for us, I kind of got to the point where I realized when you have one restaurant or one, small business, there's a ceiling for not only you, but the employees inside the company. And then it's you open up 2 and then, there's room to grow, but then there's a ceiling there and then 3 and then 4, and so I feel like you have to, as a business owner, you need to take the responsibility of growing the company so you can grow your people because they want to make more money. They want to grow in their careers. They want to have opportunities to something to work toward, hope for. So I set our audacious goal at 75 locations. I think we can get up to about a $200 million a year business, all within the Chicagoland area. I don't like being on planes. So for me, I like, if we have a Milwaukee store, there's an issue, I can jump in the car, head to Milwaukee. But I think it gives a lot of room for us to grow. The restaurant business is a very tricky business because the margins are pretty low. So you always have to keep your thumb on the pulse. As you open up multiple units in different spaces, it's also tricky because you're not all in the same building. So we end up with, 2,000 employees all spread around the Chicago area. It's easy to run a great business when you're there every day, but if you're not in the building with them, how do you run a great business from a distance?
Yep.
So a lot of challenges, but I think it's fun challenges. People love our chicken sandwiches, and we fry everything in beef tallow, so we bring a lot of happiness to the neighborhood.
You've given beef tallow a very good name.
Oh yeah, and unfortunately, our marketing's doing too well because the supply and demand of tallow has gone up.
No, but the videos on LinkedIn and your social stuff are great.
Yeah,
I learned about beef tallow.
Yeah, it's a better way to fry in. But so I think we have these fun goals to help people in our company grow, and then I think it'll be a pretty complicated business with 75 different entities all operating, feeding into commissary where we have refrigerated trucks bringing the food all around. So it'll be a pretty gnarly business. And going back to the great food, great service, and great financials, I mean, that is a pillar that we take so seriously, because I always joke that the restaurant business is a house of cards, but that house of cards is sitting on a table, and there's 3 toddlers and a dog running around that table, and it's your job to keep that cards not from falling over. And the second you walk away, guess what? Those cards are falling all over the place. So you got to keep a pulse on it, and the finance piece is so critical. I mean, I can't even stress it enough that, understanding all your invoices, every line item on that, making sure your P&L is lock, stock, and smoke and barrels, all your GLs, everything, intercompany transitions. I mean, everything has to be.
And you're talking like an accountant.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be tied. And I'm a fat guy that makes chicken sandwiches, and I'm, had to become a CFO kind of.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Amazing. What this is just a random question, but what's sort of the funniest story of anything that's happened in your first run here?
Well, the one that always comes to mind that I still can't get over is we had hired a bunch of these high school boys who were great. They all worked really hard. And we had this incentive program where it was like, hey, we'll give you $250 if you hire, you refer a friend, and the friend works in the business for over 3 months. So eventually these guys all recruited all their buddies. Before you knew it, we had 20 high school boys all working together. And they worked really hard. One of them, junior in high school, became one of the managers, key holder. So proud. You got a manager that's opening, closing, really cool. Well, these knuckleheads decided that they were going to have a fight club one night.
Ooh.
And they closed the restaurant, the best I've ever seen and the fastest, which was so impressive. And they cleared the dining room, cleared all the chairs, all the tables. They opened their doors at 11 p.m. and had all their friends come. So non-employees all came in the restaurant.
Oh, my.
And these knuckleheads, till about 2 o'clock in the morning, took turns betting and putting on boxing gloves and beating the crap out of each other. And they had a legit full-on fight club inside the restaurant. And this is how they got caught, because we have cameras, but you don't check the cameras unless there's a problem, right?
Yeah, right,
we're not sitting around watching cameras. Well, these also knuckleheads decided to put it on Snapchat. So there's 15 cell phones all out recording this. And of course, first thing in the morning, all these videos get sent to me of hey, you're not going to believe what happened in your restaurant.
Yeah, there's 1 million views of people beating each other up at Fry the Coop.
So that was a fun one. And we ended up having to fire almost all of them. And then the rest of them were kind of jaded that we fired their buddies, so they eventually quit. So it was that was the end of an era that was, kind of a fun, funny, sad way for them to go out.
If you have to laugh, because if you weren't laughing, you'd cry.
Oh, I was cracking up.
Yeah.
I'm like, these guys are on camera. What? We have audio on the camera too. It's you're like, what? So
oh my gosh, that was I was not expecting that answer.
Had they not put it on Snapchat, they kind of would have got away with it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, war stories for days. I'm sure war stories for days. I told you I would give you free rein to ask me a question. I didn't know if you.
I do have a question.
Okay,
I do.
I kind of thought you would.
So, all right, I think this is such a cool opportunity in accounting, and it's a cool way to grow a company without hiring a ton of extra people, but also to get better is through all the AI stuff in accounting.
Yep.
And I know there's a lot of talk like, oh, AI is going to replace everyone's jobs, which AI can replace my job, please. I'm waiting. When can that happen? But in accounting, though, all jokes aside, like, how are you guys going to leverage AI to help your clients better, get more efficient, kind of scale without having to, the more profitable you are as a business, I feel like the more you can help, right? And I think maybe that will allow you to do that. So
Yep.
I kind of want to learn what you got going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fair question. It's probably the one that I get asked the most these days. And I would say behind the scenes, we've got a lot of like R&D going on. Like we've got somebody tinkering around with Claude, for a good chunk of their week, every week right now. We've looked at probably all the platforms, to varying degrees.
Sure.
I think that it's not quite crystal clear what the evolution of it's going to be. I think that AI is thus far, I should say, proving to be really useful for repetitive tasks that have standard sets of inputs and outputs that can be read, automated, so on and so forth, like defined set of rules, right? But like, I think that the thing that we're finding is just, I guess to go back to your story, like, how do you determine in the set of the rules the fight club at the store the night before, kind of thing? You know what I mean? And that's an extreme analogy, but in our world, the realistic thing is that, most of the companies that we're working with are family-owned businesses. We do some in private equity, but the predominant share are companies that are independently owned or family owned, right? And then within those organizations, there's so much nuance, right? So, like, for example, I don't even know how many different accounting systems that we work with,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So, like, QuickBooks is one of many, right? But then, on that level, you got QuickBooks, you have Xero. Upstream from that, you've got, your Sage Intacct, your NetSuites, your Acumaticas, things like that. And then there's industry specific ERP systems or accounting systems. There's manufacturing, things, and there's integrations with, manufacturing, job based, kind of orders and things like that. And so, thus far, what we're finding is that between the nuances between the disparate systems, you have an additional layer of complexity in that every business operates differently. You know what I mean? So not everybody has a standardized chart of accounts, for example, that is one nuance. That'd be another layer. Another layer would be, particularly with family-owned businesses, they may treat certain customers and certain vendors very different ways, right? So it's not just our terms are net 30,
Yeah, sure.
ride or die. It's, well, don't call and bother that customer because that customer is, my uncle and he's going to get really upset at Thanksgiving but yeah, call that one 5 days early. And like, there's just a lot of like hand holding around how to treat certain customers, how to treat certain vendors, when to follow up, when not to follow up. Sometimes there's like managing cash even, where it's like, hey, particularly businesses that are, in manufacturing environments or that carry a lot of inventory or whatever, they've got to choose which invoices to pay first. A lot of times they got to borrow on a line of credit, and they may not get paid for, 60 to 90 days. And so they got to be a little choosy. And they're like, okay, pay this one, not this one. And because of that, I don't want to say it's totally insulated, but it's like, I think that we're finding that it would be really, really, really complicated to have one solution that could universally handle all those different
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
nuances,
it's impossible.
And so, where we're finding a little bit more of, the value thus far is when, you can extract data sets of information from these systems, and a lot of them have pretty clunky, like management reporting, for example, particularly like older systems or systems that are very like hyper industry specific. But there are times that we've been able to pull the data out, and then behind the scenes, we have a team of engineers and stuff like that that can then manipulate that information into what looks like actual financial statements or some financial statement reporting metrics that have used some of the AI, capabilities to obviously, do that efficiently. Um, so yeah, I mean, I would say we're steadfast in terms of like, you know, learning, growing every day from it. We're, definitely exercising that. But it hasn't thus far been some sort of whole scale thing for us where it's, the magic button.
Yeah, oh
Um,
sure. And I kind of see a lot of like the marketing aspect of it. All these companies saying like, "Oh, AI." I mean, even NetSuite, which we're rolling out right now, Oracle's been advertising how great they are in the AI with NetSuite. And then you kind of get into the really nitty-gritty and they're like, "Oh, well, we actually don't do that yet. We're working on it."
yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, okay." So I agree. And I think hearing you say about those like manual little tasks that are, kind of like they need to happen, but they're a little annoying to do or manual. Like that part, I'm excited about being automated, and if AI can help our team, do a little more critical thinking
Oh,
and
absolutely.
not
Yeah.
be wasting their time just reconciling things that.
Well, and number one, absolutely. Number two, some of that is already there. You know what I mean? Even QuickBooks Online has some sort of like AI matching type
Yeah,
things,
sure.
and they've had that before. Like AI was really an
Yeah,
AI thing.
totally.
And then there's other tools, like Bill.com, for example. It uses like OCR to read invoices. It tries to code all the details from the invoices into the right GL, and somebody just needs to like look at it and approve it,
Yeah, make sure. Yeah. Okay,
kind of
that is
thing.
right.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think you'll see more and more tools inside of these systems that help automate. And like I said, I mean, I think we're on board for the ride and the improvements. Um, but it hasn't quite, taken over yet. But I think incrementally it'll get better and better.
So you've grown the company now to this point. What are you most excited about as you continue to grow?
I mean, two things. Number one, I'm a nerd for entrepreneurship. Like I just,
Yeah.
I love learning about, your story, how to, just all the details about
Kind of
like
like the American dream story,
yeah,
right?
I love it. Like I always joke that if I was the guy at the cocktail party and there were, lawyers and bankers and doctors sitting around and there was one entrepreneur doing something even remotely interesting, I'd be like, tell me
Yeah,
about what
yeah,
you
yeah.
do.
You'll be in the corner talking
Yeah.
to that person.
Yeah, yeah. Tell
Totally.
me more. How did you get started? You know what I mean? How many locations do you have now, or how many people do you have now, or how did you do that? So I'm just naturally curious, and so the idea of getting to know more and more businesses is great. That's just part of who I am.
Love it.
But I think from a pragmatic side, financial side, if you will, what I see as the opportunity is I think it's blue ocean everywhere. 10 years ago, nobody knew what the heck I was talking about when I said the words fractional CFO. Now it's more common, for people to know what it is, but even now it's still confusing. What does that exactly mean?
Sure.
So I just still think that there's a huge opportunity there, and we're seeing more and more and more activity on the accounting side as well. So I'm just excited about the growth potential. As long as we continue to execute well and be good operators and the things that we need to do. But yeah, I'm really excited for what's next.
Do you have a employee goal? Is there like a financial goal that you'd like to get to one day?
Um, I mean, yeah, I think yes and no. I think that I have this idea in mind of getting to, a point where we're roughly, 25 million in revenue is sort of like goal number one.
Awesome.
And then when we get there, and we think that that's going to happen in the next 3-4 years. But when we get there, then it's like, like you said, it's like, what's the next, plateau,
Yeah.
and I think we'll evaluate in and around there, where we're at that point in time. And then, there's always the ambitious side of, how quickly do you want to grow thereafter? You know what I mean? What's the give and take from there? You know, we've been growing at roughly 70% a year for 5 years. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Is that sustainable? You know,
Maybe.
or is 20% okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But first and foremost, we want to get that's our next goal.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. And there is a very small percentage of businesses. I know I'm here with me with my stats, but to get over 10 million in revenue, there's only, I think it's less than 1%. It's like 0.04% of businesses will get to that 10 million or more in revenue. And then as you get to that 25 point, I mean, it's like 0.01. And then, you know, when you start getting up to 50, 100 million in revenue,
Yep.
I mean, it's like 0.0001% of small businesses will ever get there.
Yeah, and then you got to factor in how you do it. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, probably in a good way for a firm that's a fractional CFO firm. You know, we've never had an unprofitable month. You
Yeah,
know what I
it's
mean?
great. It's amazing.
But we also haven't taken on outside capital. You know what I mean? And so the question is like, hey, you can get there fast. You know what I mean? If you want to get there fast, you know, you can
Yeah,
really ignite the marketing machine, you know, expand beyond Chicago, you know, all sorts of things. But then you're like, well, I feel like I've given something up in that way.
you
You know what I
do.
mean? And, you know, so we haven't done that, but they all fit together in terms of the equation of, you know, how you want to get to where, you know, where the destination is as well.
Yeah, sure. I just love how many businesses you help and, you know, the trajectory you're on and how many more you're going to help. And, you know, and what you do for us, I know is amazing. So.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you as always, and I really thank you for your time and doing this, and you know, onward and upward for the future. And I hope to have the chance to do it again.
Let's go. Let's blow it up together.
Let's do it. For more conversations with innovative and dynamic leaders from Chicagoland and beyond, follow the Executives Exchange podcast on your podcast app or subscribe on YouTube. Until next time.